Hello there and welcome to You Talking to Me. Today we focus on the Maternity Leave Directive, which could be thrown away in June by the European Commission. The executive decided to throw away this regulation as the negotiations are still deadlocked between the Council and the Commission. So the blocking issue is about the extension. In 2010, the European Parliament voted the extension of the maternity leave from 14 to 20 weeks, and the Council hasn't been decided on the issue yet. So the topic of today is this, and I have two members of the European Parliament. Maria Arena, you're a member of the Socialist and Democrats group. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
And Julie Girling, you a British member of the European Conservative and Reformist group.
Good morning.
Hello and welcome both of you. So the Maternity Leave Directive could be the next victim of the European Commission's better regulation, which was actually presented this week, if the negotiations are still deadlocked between the Commission and the Member States. So you, Mrs. Arena, you're the negotiator on this issue in this Parliament. Do you think this proposal will survive?
I don't know exactly, because we don't have a position coming from the Council, in fact. We have both institutions coming from the Commission, we have a proposition coming from the Commission, and we have a position coming from the Parliament. And since 2010, we have no position coming from the Council, so we are waiting for this position. We tried for months to have a relation with the Council, to have a discussion, to have a negotiation with them, but it was totally impossible with them to have even a position, even if this position is not quite the same that we have in the Parliament or in the Commission, but we could have started a negotiation with the Council. And for now, they decide not to decide about maternity leave in the Council. So it's very difficult to have a prognosis about that.
Yeah. And Mrs. Girling, do you think this is, if there is a withdrawal of this proposal, this is a disrespect of the job of the European Parliament as co-legislator?
No, I don't see it that way at all. We are a co-legislator, that is the important word. We don't legislate on our own. We don't reign sovereign and supreme as we do in many member states. Many member states, the democratic model is with an executive and a parliament. This is not the case here. There's a very clear model here in the treaties. There are three co-decision makers. With the Commission will propose, Parliament looks at, and then we negotiate with Council. And at any point in that, the three institutions can decide that this is so far away from something that they want that they can reject it. Parliament has rejected proposals. We had a proposal last year on plants where Parliament rejected it outright. It is the right of any of the co-legislators. So it is. I think it's completely distracting to make this an interinstitutional row.
I think we need to have a position coming from the Council, because we have two positions, and if we want to go for we have to have a position, we need to have the position of the Council. So for me, it's very necessary to know what the Council wants. I totally agree with you that we are co-legislator, but to negotiate something, you have to know the position of the other part. So for the moment, we don't know nothing about that.
Well, forgive me, but having been through this now for 6 years in this Parliament, I can assure you that we're very clear on what the Council's saying. The Council don't like the proposal. It is so far away from anything that they can get agreement that they don't wish to put it on the table. But that's very clear.
Yeah, but it's not only to say that they don't want it. They have to say, we don't want to work on maternity leave.
Maria, they don't have to. That's the point.
It's the responsibility of the Council, so they have to take their responsibility to say yes or no.
They don't have to, and that is absolutely clear from what's happened. So you can say they have to as long as you like. It's
so
not
the Council will have the last word.
So let's get realistic. It's not going to happen.
I don't agree with you. We are co-legislators, so we need to...
We have one question that I want to read from Spain, actually, in the case of this withdrawal of the proposal and about also the job of the European Parliament. I mean, so Andrea Diez from Castilla y León Radio, Spanish member of Euranet Plus.
The European Parliament has been a guarantor of social rights and voice of citizens. If finally maternity directive is not going ahead, do you consider this as a failure? I mean, the voice of citizens is drawn between political interests?
Mrs. Girling, the Parliament it's the voice of the citizens, so...
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, maternity leave is an issue which is a member state issue. I have every sympathy with Spanish women who may feel that they're getting a raw deal from their government, but that's where they should concentrate their efforts. This is a subsidiarity issue. If they feel that they want to make changes to maternity leave in Spain, do it through the ballot box in Spain. They will be having an election fairly soon, make it an issue there, deal with it there. It actually, I would advise them, it will be easier for them. They will be closer to that. Europe is a consensual democracy of 28 member states. It is by its very nature more difficult to get an agreement.
Yeah.
So if it's that important to them, concentrate in Spain.
I want to say just a word about this diversity between the member states, because in fact, I mean, maternity leave policy is really diverse. For example, compulsory postnatal maternity leave 6 weeks at full pay in Portugal, 16 in France, and 52 at 90% in Belgium. So this would be harder. We have to be realistic.
We don't want to harmonize. We just want to say what is necessary as the level playing field.
But then you want to harmonise the lowest level?
No. For example, when you say it's subsidiarity, for the moment we have a directive coming from the Commission, and we agreed with this directive. It is the directive for health and safety for pregnant women. And this directive is, for the moment, the maternity leave, in fact. So we have it here. It is a
part of that directive.
It is a part of that directive, but it exists. So saying that it is not the competence of the Commission and the European Parliament to do that, it isn't right. We have a legislative action for the moment, for example, saying that you need to have 14 weeks and you need to have 2 weeks mandatory paid, and this is for all the European countries. So if we have it for the moment, and it is a directive coming from 1992,
yes,
we can have more based on this directive, and so it is not subsidiarity saying that.
Okay, do you also, I mean, the member states, what they also worried about, it's the cost for the companies. Do you think, Mrs. Girling, that it will be costly to extend this maternity leave, or we can?
Undoubtedly, that's not up for debate. Of course, many member states will incur extremely high costs, but I don't think that for many member states that's their motivation.
So what is the motivation?
The motivation is that they wish to keep this within the remit of the member state government's sovereignty. And the reason for that is that all of the economies in Europe work in slightly different ways. You only have to look at GDP levels, wage levels, all other benefits for workers. It is not the case that you necessarily get a better deal by harmonising. In fact, the phrase lowest common denominator comes to mind. Many, as you have pointed out, many European countries have a better deal than the 20 weeks. So let them carry on and do that. If that's what they think is right for their country,
do you agree?
That's fine.
Mrs. Arena, yes.
When we talk about a directive, it's not saying that everybody has to be in this directive. The country that wants to have more, they can. The directive is
bottom line.
The bottom line.
Yes.
And after that, a country can go further than that. What we want to have is a protection for women being pregnant, and we have a directive for the moment. It's the directive
which gives 14 weeks.
It's 14 weeks. So we have.
So it's not
to have
that
more.
There isn't any protection.
No, and we want to have more. And when you said what is the cost of having more, I want to ask what is the cost of having less, because for the moment the cost is, for example, having the rate of birth totally falling in Europe, for example, and that costs very much to Europe. The cost is having.
Do you have any evidence that birth rates are falling because people don't have
but it's not necessary
20
to have
weeks
evidence.
rather than 14 weeks? Of course, it's necessary to have evidence for any policy making.
Yeah, but we are in Europe, and we know that the birth rate is totally falling. The situation of some women.
About the rate of natality. Sorry,
this is social engineering to increase birth rates.
Yeah, for example, because when you are protected, you are more keen on doing something. It's very difficult for young women for young women in Europe to decide to have a child when you know that you are going to be in poverty, when you know that you are going to be in difficulty to keep your job, when you know that it's very difficult to assume.
Okay, just the last
work.
word, and
So,
Well, I think you would
we
then
have
have to go back
to be
in
more
time and
voluntary.
trace when there were no maternity rights pre-1970s, and I'm not aware that the birth rate
We are
was,
no more
was
in this-
affected by
We are
that.
no
We
more
just
in this
want, I just
situation,
want
you
to have
know.
a look at our reaction on Facebook. So Annika wrote, Europe is a continent which is getting older. In Germany, we need immigration to save our welfare state. Shouldn't we more support a natality policy in the EU? Mrs. Gerling,
No,
you
I would, say
apparently
to,
doesn't.
I would say to the citizen from Germany, concentrate on speaking to the German government about your maternity leave, because you will achieve more quickly there, and that's the appropriate place.
So let's have a look now on paternity leave, because also, I mean, in this proposal there is 2 weeks at full pay proposal for the fathers, and we have one recorded question from Jean Beauchamp from Polska Radio, also a Euranet Plus partner. We listen to him.
Hi, I'm John Beecham from Polish Radio in Warsaw. I wanted to ask why all the fuss concerns maternity leave. In Poland, maternity leave is currently 14 weeks and may be extended to 20 weeks. Then there's an additional period of 26 weeks which can be shared by both parents on top of the statutory 2 weeks that dads can take. Now, I'm actually a young dad who's going to take some time off this summer to look after my kid. But my question is, why is the European Commission so concerned about maternity leave when it should be taking a greater stance on the ever-increasing role and indeed pressure which fathers now have in raising a family?
Mrs. Gerling,
Well,
this could be a
I don't want
an
to
option.
sound like a broken record, but let me just say that yes, paternity leave is an issue in my own member state. It's a very lively debate on paternity leave, and indeed my government had brought in
How many weeks do you have to
paternity
have a
leave.
compulsory?
Well, it's only a shared leave of 2 weeks, but it's the beginning. It's the beginning, and that's where I think these debates should be. So I would say to John in Poland, who sounds remarkably British to me, both from the name and the accent, that it would be up to the Polish government to decide what's appropriate at their level of development and their level of economy and social development, and that's where that should be.
Mrs. Arena, you were
Personally, I'm in favour of paternity leave, but
It's very
Yes.
surprising for me, because we are European deputy, and when I hear you, you are always saying that is the way you can do that in the national government, in the national parliament. What are you doing here? If the only
Well-
thing you say is we can't do that here, and we have to do that in the national parliament. So
Well, I'm happy to answer that.
I'm a European deputy, and I want to do what it's possible to do here at the European level. And I totally agree with this man saying that we have to have a model in Europe, saying that we have to share the maternity and the paternity. We have to share how we educate our children.
That will be your last word, Mrs. Gerling, because we have to end it at
I
the
have a
program
very
soon.
different philosophy to that. I object to and utterly reject the idea that Europe should be setting a higher moral standard in some way that then dictates to member states. That's not what the European Union is for. I'm sorry.
It's not moral.
For me, I work on the Environment Committee, wholly in the competence of the European Union. Absolutely. But on areas like this, which are not wholly in the competence of the
But about
European
gender
Union, have a
equality?
look-
But gender
have-
equality, discrimination,
Gen-
health and safety, and all this
Yes.
is European competences.
And they have to be aimed, where we land as a European Parliament has to be aimed at something which is acceptable to all member states. And the proposal that the Parliament have been banging the drum for the best part of a decade is not acceptable. And as soon as members of this Parliament realise that, get it out of the way, get something back that we can work with, get something through so that we do have those health and safety protections that you're talking
Okay,
about.
I just need
Europe-
last word, and then we
European
finish.
can't be just an economic market. We have to work on social. We have to work on these matters, because Europe has to protect the European, and not only to offer a market to the European.
Social benefits can only flow from a healthy economy, and if you look around Europe, you'll see that that's the case.
Healthy economy. The economy is also important, as the social rights as well. So that will be the last words of today's discussion. Thank you, Mrs.
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you all of you for watching us. Bye.